there's a concept, or rather even a phenomena, that is usually beckons me a lot, and it puzzles me in a way that I'm forced to utter, to break the thought into something that is actually digestible. And the only way that is digestible, it is in form of words. And when you transform something that is multidimensional into something that is, you want it to make it to be more linear, or rather you want it to elucidate or annotate, or rather delineate it in a linear form, you end up missing some gaps. You end up omitting some very essential and crucial things. You see, you cannot tell me to interpret something that is multidimensional into and explain to someone to understand it in a linear form. And this is why the conundrum comes of the biggest question: do you believe in God? Jordan Peterson says right, when you ask him that question, he will ask you two questions before he can answer you that question. What do you actually mean when you say believe? And the second and the most prominent and pivotal question: what is your definition? As a matter of fact, it's a very subjective thing. What is your definition of what God is? See? That's where the conundrum starts. That's like the inaugural of the conundrum of the semantic irrationality, coherent interpretation of something that is multidimensional. You want to make it, you want to transmute it into a linear form, and that's a mistake, and it's wrong, because you end up missing some very important things that are actually of importance. Now, back to what has been puzzled me. As a matter of fact, we operate in a collective illusion narrative. It is a narrative because you cannot really differentiate a story from what your life is. Your life is just but a story, and we live in a world that we're chasing to end, by the end of the course of the day, to end up with a good story. That's like the most profound thing that we're chasing here. But I really choose not to fall into that category. I choose more of novelty, more of authenticity. And fun enough, there was a research that was actually done. When I remember the name of the study, as I continue with my confabulation, I'll utter it. Now they were comparing. Now I'll have to go back. There's a psychologist by the name Abraham Maslow. He invented the hierarchical needs of a being, that the way it has actually been arranged from the most basic things, which are like the basic necessities. Then after you acquire them, you have to acquire security on them, time that is of higher than that. Love, family, friends, you need that. What is of higher than that? It's now upon you how confident you are, your self-esteem. how you carry yourself. You see, these are the traits that actually do determine what kind of life you're going to have. And in a very simple way, what is you become, you actually are based on the frequency that you're operating in. And the illusion that has been ingrained in our mind is that you are your mind, you're nothing. Okay, at one point or another, yes, you are your mind, but you also what is not part of your mind. Whatever that is outside yourself, you also that. You see, the moment you understand this is the moment you can appreciate that you create the life you want. And there's a reason why even actually Jesus in the Bible mentions a few about whatever you think, you become it. As a man thinking, he becomes it. The book of Proverbs, one of the most profound book of wisdom, the most common, the first book ever written, and never to gain a lot of, and still gaining dominance and having a significant impact to someone's life. You see, we aren't told that you should be careful on what you feed your mind, rather will not operate at the back of the skull. Yeah, I understand there's a lot that is actually happening, but if you don't get a way to escape outside the box, or rather if you don't find a mechanism that will help you to navigate outside your head in a way that you feel that it is also part of you, what is not inside your head, it's the moment you're waking up. It is a eureka moment in your life, more so like waking up and never going to sleep. It's the same philosophical exegesis with sleeping and never waking up. It's more like when you're dead, alive, it's one and the same thing. You see, we live in a very duality existence. And if I tell you, how can you define for me what is white? You can only define for me what is white if you have actually have an acquaintance or encountered the antithesis, which is black. You can only appreciate something if you have experienced the opposite of it, and one cannot exist without the other. Then if there was only one concept, or rather one phenomenon, you wouldn't have to form you wouldn't have to form any sort of distinction in, so that you can be able to differentiate. There wouldn't be any need of talk about naming to create the distinction meant. There wouldn't be any necessity to that. And the same way, let's say you meet a swarm of bees, an army of ants, and you're there to do study on those animals, those insects and those creatures, organisms. You cannot start by naming each and every, and the millions. Actually, funny enough, you don't, if people doesn't understand, if people actually doesn't notice that the second most sophisticated, I will be very careful on using the word second, because it's even, we are scientists haven't actually found a way of differentiating which is more higher. What I'm trying to say is that ants and human beings are the creatures that have one of the most sophisticated bureaucracy and dynamic of doing things. They call this guy, they also, ants also has colony dynasty. They have even bees. But I was dealing with ants are crazy. They live, what actually they do outside the ground. You've only had an advantage to study it. The few that you've studied, it has actually left us in a state of a war, because it's enticing, to get to realize that we're not the only people who are intelligent of actually organizing ourselves in a very hierarchical way. And these are the things that you should be accustomed yourself with, because you start to understand that most creatures, most human beings, they cannot exist where there is no any form of jurisdictions, where there is no any hierarchical symbols that guides on how they actually supposed to live. The people who act, most of them, and this is a crazy, and this, it's not a crazy thing, it's a beautiful thing if you understand this, and you'll come to appreciate it, because it will make you realize how easy it is to get what you want in this life. Because most people, they operate in an existence where they can't be agency of their own lives. Imagine, you forget that you're the main. It's totally preposterous. They forget that they're the main characters in their own story, and they decide to play with a lot of pretense. They decide to play as the third party of their own story. How crazy is that? They forget that they are the directors of their own film, and they're supposed to take full responsibility on how exactly their lives is, of the cascades of events that they encounter in their lives. They're supposed to be in complete ownership, so that things will be unfolding themselves in a way that it is the way that they are supposed to be. It's very easy to get what you want, and the reason why I'm saying that is because it's one and the same. It's kind of one and the same thing, to get what you want and to be successful. Well, as much as it's a subjective definition, but basically that's what, in general, that's how you can define what success is: getting what you want. So yeah, you can get what you want the moment you realize that you have to have full agency of your own life. And it's not a walk in the park. It's just time that you do once, and then voila, things start to, you started having that drastically change of your life. Things start to manifest themselves in ways that are faster that you had anticipated. No, it doesn't work that way. Actually, the art of you trying to have full agency of your life, that can take you decades, because it means totally becoming, it's more like an extrovert trying to learn how to operate in a state of solitude. Not solicitude, solitude. It's crazy. It's not, you see, it's very complex. Very, very complex. It's a very complex thing. It's a very complex thing. Because you're trying to find value in boredom. Like you experience hundreds of experiments have been done by scientists of how people are terrified of themselves. And in psychology, we came with a conclusion that human beings cannot spend more than 3 days in a confined four-walled room with no any form of distraction, just food. They can't last more than 3 days before they start to, breaking down. And you have food, you have the essential things of your body, but yet your mind can't withstand such type of torture. It's a torture by itself. It's even used as a torture mechanism. Isolation. So you tell me that you're going to just, be comfortable in your own space in a matter of days, in a matter of weeks, years. Think again. Bluetooth mode. But again, that doesn't tell you it's impossible. It is possible. It's very plausible. Depends on your perspective. Depends on your mind. Just depends. And we go back to the same thing. Depends on your mind. It's crazy when people have this mutual collective illusion narrative. Can be misinterpreted as the truth. And if something that works for larger population doesn't mean it's the truth. If some certain kind of illusion works for a larger population, it works for them. If you're born in that type of culture, in that type of a situation, that type of cohort of individuals, nurtured and nurtured in that type of environment, taught lessons predicated to the same notion and illusion narrative, being bombarded with analogous of narratives that are entrenched to make you become completely encoded to the narrative. It will literally sound like the truth in your life, because if the examples you have people that you aspire in, that you actually seeing that they believe in that narrative and it works for them, and the fact that, and if I go back to Ronald Girard talks about mimetic theory, that mimesis, that we human beings, our most rudimentary Nietzsche calls impulse the great philosopher, but I'll use the word of Renan. He says that desire, the most rudimentary. Actually, we exist because we desire something. We find fond interest in something that we without that you lack the purpose of existence, and that's where people become having this neurotic, nihilistic, cognitive malfunction disorder. Very nihilistic. They lack the basis of axiomity of life existence. When you read a lot of books, you'll start to understand these things. And it really creates the predicament of life, because people live in the narrative, forgetting that is not the truth. And this is where religion works. It works because it works. If you contemplate what I've just actually articulated, those are very profound more so like epiphany.